Hi, I'm Gray Television's Iowa Political Director Dave Price, and this is Inside Iowa Politics. This week, we are going to begin with the Middle East, and it impacts every one of our elected officials in Congress because of the U.S. response to this. And it is different, it seems, than when Russia invaded Ukraine more than 2 years ago. Look at the response that we've seen since Hamas initially attacked and murdered people in Israel, including Americans, and then we have watched the Israeli response since then. We've seen protests on American college campuses, with some demonstrators questioning how the U.S. can continue to support Israel when Israeli forces have killed tens of thousands of Palestinian civilians as they target their revenge against Hamas and try to free those hostages. Iowa Republican Congressman Randy Feenstra just earned the endorsement of the Republican Jewish Coalition as he campaigns to hold his seat. I asked him about his continued support for Israel in light of the complaints about the civilian suffering in Gaza.
On October 7th, over 1,200 people of Israel were killed. And now we have to root out Hamas. We have to root out Hezbollah that are trying to get rid of all of Israel. And that's why we have to stand firm. So it's our task to say, all right, what can we do for military aid? How can we support our allies in Israel and stand with them and work with them to get rid of these terrorist threats?
You talk frequently about your faith. You are a Christian. You talk about your commitment to life. So when you're watching this and you believe fundamentally in that Israel needs to defeat Hamas, but civilians die as well, how do you handle that?
Yeah, and war is ugly. That's why we never want war. But when it happens, when you have a group of people of Hamas taking out 1,200 innocent babies and children and mothers and fathers, right? We have to stand firm and go along with Israel and say, Israel, you have to do whatever it takes to root out this enemy of Hamas. And that's where we are right now. And that's why we have to provide them military aid. But as you noted, war is ugly and there's consequences to war. But that's why we also have to come to a resolution here and get this rooted out.
So do you believe your role is to stand behind them to do whatever means they see necessary until they defeat Hamas?
I think what we have to do is look at all the intelligence that's out there and see where is Hamas today compared to where it was October 7th. Are they still a threat? And in some instances, they are still a threat. We have to make sure that Israel is secure in what's happening, that they can continue to live in peace as we move forward. And that's what's playing out currently. And that's, to me, what the U.S. needs to do, and that's what we're currently overseeing.
How do you look at the U.S. economy right now? There are so many different things at play. We've seen the inflationary numbers out this week that appear to be that we're moving in the right direction as that moves back down. Wages have been outpacing inflation for the last year and a half. Stock market, various indices this week set records. But then you still have a lot of folks struggling with how much more expensive things are now versus a couple of years ago. So how do you assess what the economic climate is?
Right. The economic climate, all you have to do is look to the family, look to small businesses, and to our farm producers, where the inputs, whether it be gas, whether it be groceries, electricity, health insurance, I mean, they've all gone up over 20, 30, 40%. And yet wages are probably have not, in most cases, are not keeping up with all these extra costs. And when you have a small business, when you have all these extra inputs, or in ag, all of a sudden you have a cash flow problem. Or you have a family that is trying to, on a budget, trying to have all these things, groceries and gas and stuff, and all of a sudden they start canning to afford some of these things. It becomes very concerning. And we heard about this with Grocery Association, the Retailers Association. they're starting to see reduced sales because people are starting to buy only the essential items and not buying some of the items that we typically see as extra items in our daily life.
One final question, and really it's kind of about morality. If we look in politics, you have a Democratic colleague in the House who is surrounded by people up on bribery and corruption charges, the Congressman Henry Cuellar from Texas. You have a New Jersey Democratic senator with some odd story about gold bars and corruption and all kinds of stuff. You got former president on trial for mistresses and all kinds of stuff. How do you view this? And can you assure Iowans, you're a moral guy, this kind of stuff's never going to happen in your vein? And how do you take all this in when some of these people you see periodically are caught up in all this stuff?
Dave, that's a fantastic question. For me, I'm led by my faith. I mean, my faith teaches me what is right and wrong, teaches my morals and ethics. I mean, it starts with the 10 Commandments, but it also comes with loving your neighbor. And each person in Congress or in the executive branch has to understand that. And for me, it's my whole view on life is based on my faith, and then how I play that out with my morals and ethics, and taking care of those that are around me, taking care of Iowans through policies.
So how do you demonstrate morality as a leader in a day-to-day as a congressman?
You do what's right, right? That means you don't lie, you don't cheat. It means you tell the truth. These are all things that are required of somebody who's living by faith. It also means that you have to stand up for those that don't have what you have. It means that you're working for justice. You're working for making sure that families and businesses can be successful, that they can stand on their own.
We close with the final five. Number one, the economic recovery. The latest federal jobs report shows that consumer price index went up 3.4% over the past year, down from 3.5% the month before. Most importantly, wages are going up faster than prices are right now, so people can try to get ahead. Number two, Congressman Feenstra is optimistic that Congress will pass a new farm bill. They were supposed to do it last year. Didn't do it. However, he thinks that it may not happen until after the November election, not as much politics then, so it could happen between the election and before the new Congress takes over in January. Number three, Feenstra faces a Republican primary opponent. He is Sutherland businessman Kevin Virgil. You'll remember Feenstra was the challenger back in 2020 when he took on the incumbent Republican Congressman Steve King and won. Number four, speaking of elections, remember back before the January caucuses, Feenstra hosted an event with some of Donald Trump's Republican challengers. He did it in Northwest Iowa. Trump did not come. Afterwards, Feenstra said that he would endorse a candidate before the caucuses. The speculation was that it would be Nikki Haley. It didn't happen. He never did make an endorsement there. Number five, just the size of the 4th Congressional District. The districts are all divvied up based on population, so it's approximately equal. But because you have so many smaller towns in Northwest Iowa, the 4th District of Iowa's 99 counties, it comprises 36 counties, just for some perspective here. Hey, if you have any feedback, comments, criticism, send them all our way. We always like to hear. Thanks for watching.